I'm David Scott. I'm the one grandson of Merrill H. Scott, the officer in charge at Tuna Canyon Detention Center. He was born in 1896 in Cucamonga, California. The family came to California because his father had severe emphysema and TB. They needed to get to a drier climate from back east. They proceeded to move to San Diego, and he spent most of his childhood in San Diego. He grew up, served in World War I in the cavalry, and then came out of the cavalry and went to work for the train system, where he met my grandmother in Wilcox, Arizona. And they got married and they had two boys, my uncle Merrill Jr. and my dad Robert. At that time, he started working for what was called Border Patrol, or the INS. And he was instrumental in opening the Calexico-Mexicali border crossing, San Ysidro. He was the officer in charge in San Diego for immigration and naturalization. San Pedro, he worked that station also, and he worked in Oxnard, opening that and running that, and that's where he was recruited from to come and operate Tuna Canyon. The camp had Japanese, Italian, and German prisoners at that time. Apparently the Germans and the Italians were let out a lot quicker, and so it became primarily a Japanese population. They were allowed to operate their day-to-day lives, grow vegetables to supplement their meals, had their own barber shop, they had their own PX, they had their own in language, which was rare, services as far as church services, etc. Sundays apparently were a pretty rough time. The gentlemen got to see their families, but had to look through a fence, and no one was allowed to speak Japanese. Everything had to be in English, and could be no closer than 10 feet from the fence. The gentlemen that were interned were very well behaved. I have not heard any stories of anybody having any problems within that couldn't be taken care of by their own system. At one point, somebody had asked my grandpa, how he really felt about the detainees, internees, however the term you want to use. But he said that he could let all these gentlemen out and tell them they needed to be back tomorrow at 5 to go take care of what they needed to at home. And he knew that they would come back. There would be no problems. Nothing would have happened, no trouble or anything. He said, but the biggest problem with being able to do that was the sergeant, who was a retired military man who had been reactivated, always had a gun on his side, and he was always standing at the gate. And he wouldn't allow that to happen. On several occasions, detainees gave my grandfather gifts. We actually have a pen and ink that I don't have, my aunt has it, but a pen and ink drawing of him, and then a pencil drawing of him. And then we have this box, which was hand painted, and actually it's hand manufactured. If you look at the seams, you can see they're dovetail joints, but all hand painted. And then inside the box came this, the base. It's a pretty treasured item in our family, a gift that was given in such a time. I'm the one who cared, I guess is the best way to say it. I had the knowledge, and it was very important for me that my grandfather's work did not get forgotten. He was a very special man, a very unusual man in the time that he was raised and lived. And it's important that everybody knew or knows about it and can continue on his memory. I have seen the exhibit several times, by myself, with my wife, with my auntie, and actually a couple people from when we were staying in San Diego. I took a couple people that were from the South, from Louisiana, and we went and saw it. And I can honestly say the minute I walk in, I start to bawl. Kind of known for being emotional. My kids and my wife. But this means so much that we can carry this on, not for me, but for everybody who has surviving family, so they are not forgotten. Their sacrifice, their pain and suffering. Because if we forget it, it'll happen again. We've seen it start to raise its head, and we can't let that happen.